Kinanjana Salakaya Chaksur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamayam Dadati Svapatandikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yutapada Kamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Scham Sri Rupam Saha Gujatam Sahagana Ragunitam Bitam Tam Sujivam Sadvaitam Sadvadutam Parijana Sahitam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitam Scha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Brindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Tesam Satatar Yuktanam Bhajatam Priti Purvakam Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam Yena Mamupayanti Te. Hare Krishna. So I've been requested to finish some of the story that we started the other day from the point that, for those of you who didn't hear, we're now being escorted from jail to prison. So after the Bombay Mahabharat, where so many people were fighting and one person died and about 60 people were injured, but no devotees nor chowkidars even got a scratch. Unbelievable as it was. So everyone got bail except me and one of our chowkidars named Bimal Adhikari. So we had to stay not only in jail, but now we were getting transferred to Bombay Central Prison. So Ruchi Sevana Prabhu agreed to stay with me. We didn't think it was such a good idea to leave a devotee alone in prison, so I appreciated very much Ruchi's association. Meanwhile, the first evening, we got transferred, and then there was into this big hall, and we were in our dhoti kurtas, and somebody had made some announcement. There was about 75 new prisoners that were all being inducted into prison. And someone announced something in some, I don't know, either Marathi, Hindi. Anyway, I didn't know what he said. Everyone kind of went down the floor and I stood up. So they took that standing up as sort of a rebellious act. And this prison guard started running at me with a lathi. So, in pretty fast speed. So as he was coming at me with a lathi, this little short guy, about 5'1", we called him Hanuman, he came up, and before the guard could come and hit me, he stood up and tackled that guard, and he started beating him. Jai Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Ram! And Ruchi and I were just standing there in awe. And then all the other guards came in and started beating him and dragged him off. So welcome to Bombay Central Prison. We first got there, we already started a riot. So the next morning, we went on a hunger fast because we weren't able to eat any of the nonsense that they put in prison. So as we went on a hunger fast, we had to go see the doctor, which is in the middle of the compound. We got put into the murderers row compound. In prison, the higher your crime, the more prestigious you are. So we got issued our New York Yankees pinstriped prison gear, and we were put into a large compound of prisoners. On the left-hand side, there was one group. On the right-hand side, another group. Then there was a buffer zone of about 10 yards. I had no idea what was left or right, so we went to the buffer zone because there was some open space. Anyway, we went on a hunger fast, and we had to we had to get permission from the doctor. So that one guard who got beat up the night before was the guard that came and take us to the doctor's office. When we got as we were walking to the doctor's office, looking from my left right over my right shoulder, I saw a blur coming. And this little Hanuman guy, seeing that we were walking with that guard, somehow or other we got out of solitary prison with a gate. I don't know how he did it. He came running, and as he came by close to us, he picked up a rock that was on the side of the flower bed. And the guard in front of me, he ran and he hit him across the head, split up, blood shooting out all over the place, and the guy falls down flat on his face. Now, the interesting thing, there was nobody else there. The little Hanuman guy ran back and locked himself in the jail. So me and Ruchi were standing there in front of the doctor's office. The guards laying down bleeding, and we couldn't either go back to the prison because we couldn't, where the murderers were being kept, or anywhere else, and it didn't look very good. The two of us are standing with a guard's head bleeding down, face down on the girt. So at that point in time, the doctor came, stepped over the person, and said, I said, aren't you going to take care of him? He says, he's a lifer. Whether he lives or dies, what do I care? So it was a very interesting moment in prison like that. So anyway, we got our permission, and we got to food being brought in, and the devotees started bringing buckets of some prasad. But the prasad became so popular, it had to be get by the guards first. So the guards would get their tiffins, and they'd fill their tiffins up, then they would distribute it. So first we had a couple buckets that me and Ruchi would be taking, and then it got so popular we started distributing amongst all the murderers. The difference was on the left-hand side, there were the Muslims, which I found out a little bit later. On the right-hand side were the Hindus. We were a little closer to the Muslim side, and so we had to go to the restroom. So as we started wandering over to the closest restroom, the Muslims all started to get up like no one's supposed to cross that territory, like I was entering into Pakistan or something. So at that point in time, the good thing about that is all the prasadam started being distributed. And as we started being distributed the prasadam, the Muslim side started getting really angry. So I walked over, and they first stopped me like they were going to beat me, but then the head guy said, let them come. And I walked over and I said, we're going to do our programs. So chanting Hare Krishna, why don't you do your prayers to Lord Allah before us? I thought diplomatically, otherwise if we start doing it, it'll be a big problem. So he said, you're a very smart person. So anyway, what happened is at 6 o'clock in the evening, you'd hear this, Allah Akbar, you'd be hearing it, everyone be, the Muslims, and they would all be hitting the floor and chanting, the prayers to Allah. And at 7 o'clock, we started doing the Gaur Arti, Kiba Jayo, and we started the chanting. And then a few of the Hindus would come in the very beginning, not so many. And then we decided we need a pujari. So there was a person next to us who was the only other person in this no man's land, and no one else was close to him. So he said, I am pujari, I can do. He was worshiping like 33 million demigods. In the meantime, what happened is we found out why no one was sitting next to him is because he was convicted with 21 murders, and everyone was frightened of him. So he got along with me pretty well. Somehow or other, he became the pujari we had a little picture of Radha Bihari that we brought in. And as we started the programs and chanting, he would go out into the Hindus, and he goes, you're coming to the program. And everyone nodded their head, and all of a sudden we got all the people over there. We realized the other part we didn't know. He said, otherwise I will kill you. So all of a sudden, all the Hindus all came up to the program, and this guy, they were frightened of the guy next to us, and he was the pujari, so he rounded up everyone to the program before each of our program. So we started this daily, and by the third day, even the Muslims wanted to take prasadam, so we went from 2 buckets to about 10 buckets. Then all the guards would want prasadam. And then as the devotees were bringing stuff in, they start bringing in books. And then what happened after about the 4th day, we would hear at 6 o'clock, we would have the Muslim Allah Akbar show, and then at 7 o'clock we would do Gaur Arti and Hare Krishna. Then from another compound behind us somewhere we'd hear Jai Ganesha, Jai Ganesha, Jai Ganesha Deva. So all of a sudden this whole prison that had no religion, and so all was the doom and gloom. You'd have the Muslims, then the Hare Krishnas, and then the Ganesh Bhaktas, and then the next night you'd have the Muslims, the Hare Krishna, the Ganesh Bhaktas, and you'd hear Om Namah Shivaya Namaha. So all of a sudden now the whole prison is like a big bhajan kutir. So we started, then all of a sudden somehow or other the guards tell the other guards that were guarding our compound, and they said, you know, these murderers row there, they're all getting prasadam. So the other people asked, can we also bring prasadam for the other convicts and the lesser crimes? So all of a sudden, whoever the cooks were at Juhu, all of a sudden now they were getting like about 15 bucket preparations that they're bringing over in buckets, and with, you know, khichdi and also puris, and all of a sudden we're like distributing like 1,000 plates of prasadam in prison, and we're the prisoners. So and then all these Gita Gans and Marathi little back to Godheads are being distributed out. All the guards are being bribed so they can get this. So after about a week of this, the warden comes into our little cell and goes, what are you doing? And I go, what do you mean, what are we doing? We're chanting. And he looked over, and there was a little altar we made of Radha Ras Bihari, and you're not supposed to have an altar. So one of the guards went over to knock it down, and he stopped him. And he said, you know, I am Gujarati, but I don't have a Bhagavad Gita in Gujarati, so I got the hint. So we started more preaching programs, and all of a sudden, the whole place, he said, you've turned this whole place into a bhajan kirtan. So 1 hour a day we got to walk around the compound, and it's India, right? So in the compound there was a tulsi plant. So we didn't have any paraphernalia, so we started doing tulsi arti. So at first there was just Ruchi and I doing tulsi arti, then a few of the Hindus come. Then after the second day there was about 60 people doing chanting along with the artik, and then as the incense was given, the lamp came in, we passed the lamp around, and everyone's doing, you know, taking pranams from the lamp, which is the same thing that happened in the Santa Cruz jail. So this was going on for a month, and then when I would speaking in English, the Bimaladakari, who could speak Bengali, Marathi, and Hindi, would translate in one language and in the other language, so all the different people there could actually hear the classes. So as I understand it, I'll make a long story short on this, as we understand in that platform, even after I got out, we were vindicated, and the actual trial was horrible because there was none truth on either side of it. But when I got out, the program continued in prison for, I'm not sure the number of years, because I didn't talk to Gopal, but for a number, how many? 1 year. 1 year after we got out of prison, it still was being maintained by Bimaladakari. So that was the other side of the final side of the prison side that came on. There's a little more to it, but that's enough of that. I'd like to say a little bit of my recognitions of Prabhupada, because I had the opportunity of doing Prabhupada's darshans for about 4 or 5 years, from 73 to 77, 74 to 77, where Prabhupada in his rooms, whether in Mayapur, Vrindavan, there was a lot of different activities, and we were able to either bring people in or not. So one day Pishama came into Prabhupada's room, and I was sitting there and no one else was there. Pishama was Prabhupada's sister. So she came in and she'd be speaking in Bengali. So I had some services I was going to do to bring some things back for Prabhupada. So they're speaking in Bengali. I got up to leave and Prabhupada said, sit down. So I didn't know what I did wrong, so I sat back down. And at the end, about 10 minutes after Bhishma left, Prabhupada turned to me and said, the sannyasis are not sitting alone in a room with a woman, even with his mother or sister. There was no one else there to preach to, but he told me that. So later I saw some not exactly great examples from some of our own men in that regard, and some of them had fell down. So that was one of the things we saw very much about Prabhupada. Prabhupada was very much not only what everyone has already said, but he was very strict in following the principles from our Guru Sampradaya. My favorite opportunities, of course, I survived the first time meeting Prabhupada. I came to challenge him if he was a real guru, which was sort of in my character. I made 4 things. I had just read the Bhagavad Gita, which had fell on my head, so I figured, okay, I should probably read it. And it was the old 1968 Macmillan version of Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. And after I read it, I had spent 6 years in studying Judaism, Christianity, Islam, so many of the different religions in college and prior to college. But I was being fed up because after everything else, there was this mixtures of truth, and I didn't feel there was any truth in it. Reading the Bhagavad Gita, my hairs were standing in, I was feeling confirmations. It was so wonderful. But then I thought, who is this A.C. Bhakti something Swami? You know, at that time there was Bhagavan Rajneesh and Guru Maharaji and Mahesh Yogi, all these bogus gurus. So I wasn't interested in following some bogus guru. So I was fairly wealthy, so I was praying to God the night before, please give me instructions what to do or what should I do. So I decided I was going to hitchhike from San Diego to Los Angeles, which is something I never did because I was wealthy and I had a car. And so I hitchhiked. The second car came by from San Diego State and drove me all the way to the corner of Venice and Watsika, where the Los Angeles temple was. So I thought, this is pretty good. So I walked through the parking lot and there was nobody. Then one devotee came out with red hair, tall, and he said, would you like to see Srila Prabhupada? Which was my intention. The devotee ended up being Shyam Sundar. He brought me around the side of the Los Angeles temple, up the stairs into the room where Prabhupada was there. And they put me in the back of the room. I had difficulty sitting in a cross-legged position because I was a football player and my legs were too well developed, so I was having a hard time. My hair was long, and I looked in there, all I could see was people in saffron with sticks. I didn't know what a dunda was, never had seen one before. There was about 3 or 4 sticks up in the air with people in saffron and 2 people in white. And some of the people were crying, and Prabhupada was sitting in the front as they were playing Prabhupada's new Hare Krishna album. So as I sat down, I made 4 different platforms that Prabhupada, to challenge if he's a real guru. And what it was you have to know what the absolute truth is. The second one, you have to know the process. Third one, it was the 60s. You have to be able to read my mind. And the fourth one is you have to be able to predict the future. Why those? Who knows? That came to me. So I sat down in the back, and immediately Prabhupada scanned the room, and then he looked at me, although there was a few people in front of me, and he said, why are you a Kripana? And I was thinking, what the heck is a Kripana? And I didn't say anything. Then Prabhupada said, Kripana means miser. So you have abilities, and you're not using them for Krishna. You have intelligence, but you're not using them for Krishna. Therefore, you're a miser, opposite of Brahmana. And so I was getting kind of angry at that. I've never met Prabhupada before, but he already called me a miser. And meanwhile, I didn't say anything, but then he started telling what the absolute truth is, that are about surrender to Krishna and the service to Krishna. They start speaking about bhakti, the process. So I was a little shaking now because two of my points were being fulfilled. So I was thinking, well, at least he hasn't talked about the predictions, because if he knows about talking about predictions, he would have been able to read my mind. And then Prabhupada called Prajumna. Meanwhile, while he's doing that and he's chastising me, the seas parted. All the devotees on each side going, they first wondered, was Prabhupada telling them that they were Kripana? So they all kind of parted, and then there was this direct area between me and Srila Prabhupada. And they all didn't want to have anything to do with Prabhupada was being very heavy with me. And so Pradyumna comes back into the room with this huge book, and I'm sure the servants have seen it. The book that he translates, I think it was the 10 commentaries, or 7 or 10 commentaries, 10 of the Bhagavatam. And so he turns to the 12th canto. Then the first time in USA, at least in North America, he starts reading. And of course I had long hair and at that time, even though I was a football player. And he says, people will think they're beautiful by having long hair. And then he started talking about, you won't have any justice unless you get money. Then he started predicting that there won't be any fruits or sugar or vegetables, and that people will be eating seeds, and that those who become at 20 or 25 years old will be considered ripe old men at the end of the age of Kali. This is enough to scare the heck out of you if you never heard that before. So I was still thinking, but he called me a Kripana, a miser. So anyway, the period left. I ran down the stairs. I didn't want to talk to anybody. And so what happened is, long story, we'll make it short now. I went back home and I went through everything Prabhupada said and realized I was just being a jerk and I should accept. So I borrowed my parents' car, drove back to the temple in Los Angeles the next day and wrote a check out for over $1,000, which at that time in the 1969 was a pretty big donation. And then Karandar told me, you want to give this to Prabhupada? I said, no, that's okay. I was already frightened of Prabhupada at this time. Oh, 1 second. So he said, at least wait here. So I did, and he came back down after Prabhupada said that you have understood. And the last thing, and the only thing I'll say very quickly that was most important to me, Prabhupada, during a morning walk in Atlanta, he approached me next to the side and he said to me, do you know this verse? And it was Bhagavad Gita 10:10, Tesam satsate yuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam tadami buddhi yogam tam yena mama payantite. And they asked, and I didn't know it, and he made me chant it with them. Then he said, you will chant this? Almost knocked me over by his strength. I said, yes, Srila Prabhupada. Every day? Yes, Srila Prabhupada. Then he walked forward 3 or 4 steps and he said, in this way Krishna will always provide you the intelligence. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.